Hello, this is Cecil Sunk here from Hotkeyit.com, and in this video I'm going to continue from the last one, and this is going to be the second video on mechanics, and specifically it's going to go over scouting and usage of the observer, army positioning, minimap usage, and minimap awareness. All of these things are all considered mechanics, although they're not mechanics that are necessarily required to macro well. They're mechanics that are required for you to play well, which is what differs from the previous video. So go ahead and to start, I'm going to talk about observer and scouting. I always recommend that you have an observer on a hotkey and use it to go around the middle of the map. And the places that you're going to want to have the observer are places of common travel. This ambient sounds are annoying. Places of common travel are going to be usually from the opponent's natural expansion to other spots. So from one natural expansion to another, the common paths of travel would be here and here. So having an observer somewhere along these points is going to be extremely important so that you can spot for your enemy's unit movements. Usually what I'll do in a game is I'll have my observer outside my opponent's natural expansion, about right here, and I'm going to just wait while watching the minimap, macroing back at home, to see when my opponent moves out of their base. And then I'll put my observer kind of off to the side. My opponent's army will be right here, and I'll just kind of keep an eye on it with the very edge of the observer's range. What that'll do is it'll let me know where my opponent's army is, but it'll be a lot harder for them to spot my observer. Whereas if the army was right in this green box and my observer is here, they're likely to just see it, scan and kill it, or realize that you're watching them. So kind of follow them from the side and the edge of the fog of war if you can. I also think you should always have an observer in your army. One of the most awesome things about having an observer in your army, besides just having detection for your army, is that you can rally buildings like robotics facilities, stargates, onto the observer itself. That way you have like a mobile rally point. You should also, if you have time, like robo production time, try to have an observer, say, on this point of the map, right here, to spot for flying unit movements, mutilisks, dropships, warp prisms, anything. Another good place to have one is somewhere right down here or here. Usually I actually just put pylons there, which leads into the next thing I'd like to talk about, is trying to use spotter pylons during your gameplay. Much too often I see players in the lower leagues play by sitting in their base. It's where their vision is just like these three spots and they don't ever move anywhere else. You have to have vision on points of common travel. So for flying units, everywhere I'm putting these pylons, and then where this observer is going on this map particularly, are where you're really likely to see something fly by. This pylon, this pylon, this pylon, and soon to be this one over here, and that one. These are all points of interest that you're going to want to have vision on the minimap. And then if I have an observer here, and then perhaps have something on the, oops, grab the wrong one, perhaps some vision on the watchtower as well. Let me adjust my units just a little bit more, hide this one in the smoke. Cool. Put something here.
Mineral field depleted.
Hide this guy over in the smoke. And then, let's say I have a nexus here, like buildings. Okay. Now look at my minimap. I have vision almost everywhere, and this is the type of vision I strive to have whenever I'm playing a game. And it should be pretty obvious as to why you'd want this. If you have vision across the minimap like this, you can just see what's going on and play a more reactive game. To where, if you saw moments ago, my vision was limited basically to this area. You don't really know what's going on. And if you don't know what's going on as an improving player, what that does is it inhibits your ability to improve further. Because the less you know about the game, the less you're going to know about how to improve your game. So please do get as much vision around the map, try to identify points of travel. Let's actually go over identifying some points of travel besides just these two on this map. Another common point of travel, I guess I've already actually identified this one as well, is right here. Mutalisks, dropships always hang out right here. I don't actually have vision of this corner because the idea is if I have vision on everywhere to access that corner, namely these locations, then I don't need to know if anything's here or not. Or I don't actually have to see it because I'll just know if anything passed through because I'm watching my minimap here constantly. And when you're playing, I'm going to try to get some examples by imitating what playing might be like to show you guys how and when you should look at the minimap. So I'm just going to kind of mimic playing, and I'm going to say minimap every time I look at the minimap. So I'm imagining I'm in a game right now. Probes are full, gonna transfer, looking at the minimap. Go back to my army, make sure it's in a good position, look at the minimap. Upgrade, spend some money. Looking at the minimap now. Order some more upgrades, macro, spend chrono boost. Look at the minimap. Look at the minimap. Get some gateways at my third. Look at the minimap again. Okay, so that's about how frequently I look at the minimap when I play. So I suggest you, as an improving player, try to strive to do the same thing I did. Okay, so anytime you have like a little hiccup in your macro or an idle in which you're not doing anything, then right there is prime time to just glance at the minimap. Just glancing at the minimap improves your awareness of what's going on by like a factor of 5 million. Okay, so besides minimap usage or minimap awareness, there's also minimap usage. If I didn't actually pay attention to how I was using the minimap while I was macroing, but I'm pretty sure that I'm not scrolling with the sides of the map very often at all. When you scroll with the sides of the map, like this, with your mouse, you should really only be doing that to make minute adjustments corresponding to where your army is, or really other small adjustments. Like, you click on the minimap like this and you need to go over a little bit to get the next building. You don't, however, want to scroll from base to base to base to base to do your macro. This is really, really terrible. There's no APM involved in this. You're not training your mind to use your hands properly or anything. You won't improve as a player. So instead, try to make big sweeping movements either with F keys or by clicking on a minimap. Because each click on the minimap actually gets you used to looking at the minimap. It also improves your mouse accuracy and helps you improve your mechanics between jumping and doing different complex actions with the keyboard and mouse. A really good way to know if you're using the minimap very much, because perhaps say you're playing a game on ladder and you're having trouble focusing on using the minimap and just playing your game. So a good tool to use is actually something on it's called like IO Graphica, and I don't think you can see my browser right now because I just exited to my browser to double check I got the right website. Okay, so if you go to iographica.com, iographica.com, there's a cool tool that you can run while you're playing your game, and it'll record a very awesome image of all of your mouse movements. So then you can see like how often your mouse is over here, how often your mouse is in the middle of the map, and most importantly, you can see how often your mouse is on the edges of the screen. A bad player, one that's just improving or learning to play, is going to have a ton of mouse movements on the sides of the screen like this, and a whole lot of still pauses, because it also records when your mouse pauses. A good player is going to have a ton of action in this area of the map, or the screen, and then a lot of action in the mini-map as well. So you can see me mock playing right now. I haven't really actually hit the edge of the map until I needed to move my army right there. And playing like that is gonna be really, 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 really good. That means you have good mechanics if you're playing like that. Lastly, I want to try to talk about army positioning. In order to help keep your games from feeling really random, like you just win or lose and you don't know why, because your games feel really random. Like either you make the right units or you don't and you lose, or for any other reason why you don't know why you win or lose. A good way to mitigate that feeling, besides just having good minimap awareness and minimap usage, is to also have good army positioning. Think of moving your army as a tool, okay? So whenever I move my army, I'm using a tool. If I were doing construction on a building, a hammer would be my tool, or nails. But in StarCraft, it's moving your army. So that means whenever you move your army, you need to have a very clear goal of why you're moving your army. Just sitting my army here might actually be really, really beneficial in some point of the game. But I have to know why I need to keep my army there. Perhaps the opponent's army is right here, or right here. That'd be a good reason to have my army sitting pretty still. But if there's no reason for your army to be sitting in this portion of the map, right in your natural, and you don't know why you have it there, then you need to move it. And if your reason for it being there is I don't have the APM, well, it doesn't really matter if you have the APM for it. It's good if you don't have the APM to move your army around the map where it needs to be, because then that means you have a lot of room to improve, and you can simply practice by just moving it around the map. Even if it causes you losses in your game, it doesn't matter. Your goal should be to be improving, not necessarily just winning games. Your end goal should be improving, but not your immediate goal. So that covers moving your army, but now to where it needs to be. But now you need to figure out or learn how to identify where your army needs to be. And that's a really broad topic that I can't completely cover in one video, but I can try to shed as much info on it as possible real quick. So to identify where your army needs to be, you need to assess the situation and figure it out as best as you can. You can also, of course, ask questions on the Hotkeyit forums or send me an email. Either of those will work. I can answer specific questions. So, for example, if the opponent has mutalisks, I'm going to need to have as much vision on the map as possible. Usually these pylons will be sniped, but you should have a robo, and you should not be making robotics units against mutalisks. So you should be making observers. Whenever I have an opponent that's going heavily into mutatech, I actually make like 7 observers, 5 to 7, and I'm not even kidding. I'll have an observer here on this map, probably an observer here, an observer here. That's 4. And then I'll have 1 going on their tech and their bases until it dies, and then I'll have 1 in the middle of the map trying to look for their ground army, if like their Zerglings or where their mutalisks are, or anything active on these lanes of travel. And the point of what I was just saying is you have to have that minimap awareness that I was talking about earlier in order to know where to place your army so that you don't lose in retarded ways. In PvT, if you aren't sure if there is a dropship out here or a dropship coming, you need to have some units in the back of your base to defend against one in case there is. If, however, you have strong minimap awareness, like I have right here, I'd be pretty comfortable not leaving any units here until I see something move around on the back of the map. Then I can warp in some stuff or move some stuff from my natural. So by having good minimap awareness, I can actually get some units out of my main and put them in my army. And another thing is to never just kind of move your army across the map or really make really huge army movements unless you know why you're doing it. Moving my army around here like this in an actual game just because I feel like moving it isn't actually very smart if I don't know where my opponent's army is. If my opponent's army is down here and I'm just like moving my army around here just for the hell of it, my opponent's army can take a base, and I can have an entire base taken from me for basically free, all because I'm not paying attention to where my opponent's army is. So a good way to figure out where you need your army to be is comparative to where or what army your opponent has, and where your opponent's army is at. My opponent's army is down here. I'm probably going to want my army to be around here. And if my army's down here, I'm going to have a large flank open up here that I'm probably going to need to cover with a lot of cannons or some spare units. Conversely, if my army's over here in my natural, then I have a large flank down here. And I'll probably going to need to cover my flank with something. It's especially important, I think, in PvZ. If you move out, you need to cover your flanks with something almost all the time. So usually, when I move out in PvZ, I'll purchase a bunch of cannons like this to get rid of some minerals as I'm moving my army down here or over here. And then can also cover this flank with something as well. Covering your flanks is pretty important. And I think that about covers it for the different topics I was going to talk about in this video. Main point being, in terms of moving your army around, is know why you're moving it and know where it needs to be. If you don't, then that means you have something to learn and you need to figure it out and learn it. If you fail to do this or just don't do it for some reason, maybe you're lazy or whatever, then your games are going to feel more random. You're going to feel like Zerg is imbalanced or Terran is imbalanced, dropships are imbalanced, or whatever is imbalanced. You can't blame anything but yourself if you're just making decisions without really knowing why you're making them. Be deliberate, know why you're doing what you're doing. And that covers it for this video. I have one more video to go over in the series of macro. The next one is going to be on the little things adding up in your macro, how a lot of small mistakes can add up to one really, really big difference and then cause you a loss in your game. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please feel free to use the Hotkeyit forums to ask any questions you have.